You saw her cry once, not loudly, not even visibly, just the shimmer in her eye as she turned away like a blade catching moonlight. You thought it meant love, that you had pierced something rare, something soft, but no, she was only adjusting her mask. Behind it, no wound, just calculation rehearsed 1,000 times. You were meant to flinch, meant to stay. She touches your arm like she's grounding herself, but it's your breath that stills, your muscles that loosen, because some part of you rotting, ancient, wants to believe women suffer when they love, and if she suffers, you must be worthy. She makes you feel chosen, but only when you've bent, only when your spine curves into obedience, disguised as care. You think she needs you, no. She needs your reflection, pliable, trembling, hers. And if some whisper already knows this, let it echo. Like the video. Leave your fracture in the comments. Subscribe and stay with the silence. Because the next time she says, "I just want to help," you might forget the cage was velvet. You thought the first touch was an accident, the way her fingertips brushed the back of your hand like wind passing over glass. You didn't notice how slow it was, how her eyes didn't move when she smiled. She wanted you to feel something unnamed, gratitude, perhaps, or the ache of being seen. You felt both, didn't you? That hunger that has lived in your bones since the first time you were ignored. She knows this hunger. She feeds it. She makes it holy. And you kneel like it's a sacrament. Her kindness comes in fragments. A question whispered softer than breath. Are you okay? That's all it takes. Your body tilts toward the sound, like a tree bending under invisible wind. She waits. She lets silence bloom between you because silence is where your doubt crawls out to beg. And when you speak, when you confess even the smallest bruise, she smiles like a confessor who forgives. But forgiveness is not her gift. It's her chain. She drapes it around your neck like silk. You thank her for it. You call it love. You think power roars. You think it crushes with iron, but the sharpest control is gentle. It purrs, it leans close, and its breath smells like trust. She gives you that measured, rationed, like drops of water over parched lips. Enough to keep you crawling, never enough to let you rise. That's the trick, isn't it? To make you believe the cage is comfort, to make you call the bars home. Watch how she phrases it when you falter. Not a command, not a demand. No questions, always questions. Do you think that's wise? Don't you trust me? Questions with teeth hidden under velvet. Each one is a seed burrowing into the soil of your spine. Roots grow while you sleep. By the time you wake, your will is a forest you no longer own. You'll defend her with words you think are yours, not knowing you've been ventriloquized by her softness. You imagine freedom is a door, something you can open, something visible. Fool. Freedom doesn't vanish in storms, it evaporates in fog, slowly, silently, until you wake one day and cannot tell if the air you breathe is yours. That's what she builds, a fog that feels like warmth. You mistake her approval for sunlight, when it is only the glow of a lamp designed to keep you docile. Every gift she gives you comes with an echo. Hear it. That faint hum behind the thank you in your throat. That's the price curling its claws around your future. You think her attention is pure? No. It's an investment, and the interest compounds in silence. She doesn't demand repayment. She doesn't need to. You'll offer it freely, trembling, grateful because she taught you to measure your worth in how quickly you kneel. Have you noticed the way she speaks of other men? Not cruelly, not openly, just enough shadow in her tone to make you feel like light. That's the oldest leash in history comparison disguised as praise. she will tell you, you're not like them, and watch the hunger bloom in your chest. She will feed it again and again until your soul gnaws itself raw for another bite of her approval. But here's the venom hidden in her smile every time she says, I care. She's digging the hook deeper, not because she feels nothing. Oh no. Feeling is her instrument. She knows exactly what note to play to make you tremble, and you, stupid and aching, call it music. You clap when the pain becomes melody. You dance when the strings cut your feet. Have you ever wondered why her pity feels heavier than your rage? Because pity is a throne, and you kneel before it every time she whispers, you poor thing. She doesn't need to shout. She doesn't need chains. She rules by gravity, the kind that pulls your spine down while making you believe you are rising. This is the paradox you refuse to taste. She weakens you to make you crave her strength. She blinds you to make you worship her light. She wounds you in secret, then kisses the scar in public. And you call that intimacy. You call it fate. You even call it destiny, because you cannot bear the thought that you chose this prison, that you were complicit in your own capture. Look closer. Her care has patterns, doesn't it? It appears only when you drift, when you dare to stand an inch away from her gravity. Suddenly, she aches for your well-being. Suddenly, she remembers your worth. That's not love. That's surveillance disguised as devotion. You're not her equal, you're her territory. She marks you with sighs, with glances, with words that sound like concern but taste like ownership. And when you dream of leaving, the memory of her softness strangles you harder than her control. Because you've forgotten who you were before her. That's the last trick, the cruelest one to erase the horizon so you mistake the cage for the world. You will not break the bars, because you can no longer imagine air beyond them. So you sit, you wait, you say thank you when she brings water to your lips, even as the rope tightens around your throat. And deep down, a voice whispers the truth you refuse to name. She never wanted your freedom. She wanted your surrender dressed as gratitude. If this voice stung, if it scraped bone you thought was stone, let it echo like the video. Leave your fracture in the comments. Subscribe, because the next whisper will not save you, it will strip you bare. You thought it was love when she mirrored your pain, when her eyes softened just as yours were hardening, when she said, I understand, and you believed her, because something in you needed that reflection, needed to be seen, even if the mirror was cracked. But she wasn't reflecting you, she was rehearsing you, echoing your words just enough to keep your guard open, responding not to your soul, but to your wounds. She doesn't love you, she maps you, scans you for where you break, feeds you your own shadow until you mistake it for a gift. This is how control hides in empathy, not with cruelty, but with attunement. She studies your fears like sacred texts. She knows where your father failed, where your mother turned cold, where your brother laughed too long when you cried. And she wraps herself in those gaps like silk robes. That's not connection, that's strategy. You are not her partner, you are her instrument. She doesn't raise her voice, she doesn't raise her hand. She raises questions just at the edge of your confidence. Do you think they'll take you seriously? Is this really what you want? Each one gentle, like a lullaby? But they rock you out of yourself. They dim the torch you lit for your own clarity. You stop trusting your direction. You start scanning her face for weather. That's when the inversion begins. Your certainty becomes arrogance. Your instinct becomes recklessness. Your silence becomes guilt. Not because it's true, because she made it feel true. She holds up a mirror, but only the one where you're wrong. And when you resist, she mourns, not angrily, not visibly. She sighs, she withdraws, she becomes disappointed, that brutal word dressed in pastel. And like a good student, you try again. You adjust. You shrink. You offer more transparency. She calls it progress, but your ribs know it's sacrifice. Your skin remembers. She builds a version of you inside her, and slowly you begin living in it. A version that avoids conflict, smiles more quickly, asks for less, and you confuse this with maturity. You call it growth. You parade your compliance like evolution, but in private, your dreams rot. You apologize in sentences you didn't write. You shape yourself around her moods like wax in the heat. She doesn't force this, she invites it. That's her genius. She makes you believe your submission was your own idea. She weaves language like lace, soft, elaborate, blinding. She says, "I just want what's best for you," and your instincts begin to rot. She says, "Don't take it the wrong way," and your spine forgets how to stand. She says, "You're just so intense sometimes," and the fire you were born with smothers itself in shame, and you smile. You call this intimacy, but ask yourself, when was the last time you spoke freely, not carefully, not defensively, freely? When was the last time you disagreed with her without paying for it in cold distance? There is always a price for your autonomy. Sometimes it's silence. Sometimes it's sex. Sometimes it's the way she looks at her phone instead of your face. And here's what makes it monstrous: she doesn't even know she's doing it. Because she believes her love is pure. She believes her vision of you is you. Her control feels like care to her and to you. Eventually, it starts to feel like reality. This is the myth of the mirror, that what is shown to you must be true. But mirrors can be shaped. They can be polished until they lie with grace. She is not your mirror. She is your sculptor. She molds the version of you that makes her feel safe, and you, starved for approval, mistake that safety for belonging. You start to seek her feedback like a priest seeks a god's whisper. Did I handle that okay? Do you think I was too harsh? You externalize your compass. You outsource your soul. And when she rewards you with softness, you call it love. But it is only permission, temporary, conditional, reversible. And when you falter, when you crack in the places she smoothed over, she calls it regression. She says, "I thought we were past this," as if your humanity is a relapse, as if your depth is an inconvenience. And so you cut yourself down to size again. You amputate your instincts. You exile your doubts. And she holds you while you do it. She strokes your hair while you erase yourself. She tells you you're doing the work, while your authenticity hemorrhages in silence, and you call it healing. But beneath your grin, there is a scream no one hears, because she taught you that your pain is disruptive, that your doubts are projections, that your boundaries are wounds you haven't healed yet. She pathologizes your sovereignty, frames your independence as trauma response, and you swallow it because she does it with tenderness. She will cry when you pull away. She will say things like, "You don't know how much this hurts me," and mean every word, because it does hurt her. Losing control always hurts the one who had it. You will feel cruel, you will feel monstrous, and you will crawl back just to soothe her ache. That is the moment she wins. Not because she punished you, because she made your guilt do it for her. If you've ever whispered an apology you didn't believe just to keep the peace, she heard it as victory. If you've ever changed your tone just to make her eyes soften, she saw it as confirmation. If you've ever said, "You're right," when she wasn't, you became the mirror she always wanted. And what is left of you now? A man who checks his own voice before he speaks. A man who fears being misunderstood more than being unseen. A man who calls adaptation growth when it's only erosion. She never hit you. She never raised her voice. She didn't have to, because you broke yourself into the shape she needed and thanked her for the privilege. So ask yourself, who would you be without her gaze? What would you say if no one flinched? How loud would your truth be if no one softened their eyes to silence it? And would you survive that freedom, or would you return to her mirror, begging to be shaped again? If this whisper cracked the glass, let it echo, like the video. Leave your broken reflection in the comments. Subscribe, and remember her sympathy was your leash all along. She tells you you're brave for staying, for choosing the hard conversations, the real work, the commitment to growth. She whispers it like a blessing. But do you know what it really means? It means you've accepted the crucifixion of your will as a sign of nobility. She doesn't need to chain you. She places a thorned crown in your hands and waits, and you, trembling, place it on your own head. That is how the game ends, not in rebellion, but in self-coronation, in calling surrender strength, in calling erasure depth. You have learned to kneel with pride. Every time you say, "I'm learning," what you mean is, "I've stopped resisting." Every time you say, "She brings out the best in me," what you mean is, "I've forgotten how I used to sound." Because her love is not loud. Her love is not even present. It's implied in her sighs, in her brief touches, in the way she lets you return, just when you think you've had enough. This is the architecture of control absence timed like presence, silence folded into ritual, the disappearance that teaches you to beg. She starves you slowly of certainty, of autonomy, of breath, and watches how grateful you become when she feeds you crumbs of warmth, a smile, a hand on your shoulder. "And I missed you" that drips like honey into your ruin. You swallow it whole, like a starving man convinced he chose to fast. You don't even realize you're suffering because she turned your ache into a virtue. She told you that devotion must hurt, that love without discomfort is fantasy, and so you carry your pain like a relic. You bleed in silence and call it patience. But here's the poison she suffers too, just enough to keep you hooked. She shows you glimpses of her sorrow, lets you see the cracks. She makes you believe you're the only one who sees her unmasked. And in return, you bind yourself to her ruin. You become her rescuer, her priest, her mirror. You stop asking if her wounds are real. You start asking how much of yourself you can give before she leaves again. She doesn't demand devotion. She inspires it by breaking in front of you. And you confuse access with love. You believe proximity to her pain makes you essential. But you're not essential, you're replaceable, interchangeable. One of many who've bled themselves dry under the illusion of being the only one who truly understands her. What she offers is not intimacy, it is myth. She is the orphaned queen, the misunderstood siren, the fire that no man could handle until you. And because you want to matter, you believe it. You step into the script, not knowing it was written long before you arrived. And what role do you play? The redeemer, the one who proves she's not too much, not too broken. You were never chosen, you were cast. But here is the tragedy you cannot name in trying to save her. You lose yourself, and she never stops you. She only mourns you after. She says, "You're not like you used to be." She says, "Where did your fire go?" And she says it as if she had nothing to do with its extinction, as if you didn't dim yourself for her comfort, as if your silence wasn't taught, trained, worshipped. She'll blame the world for what she stripped from you. She'll grieve the very freedom she spent years caging, and you'll ache because you still want her approval, even as she mourns the man she helped destroy. This is how she keeps power, by casting herself as victim of your decay. She will cry when you finally draw the line, And you will hesitate not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to believe her suffering is more sacred than your truth. You were taught that love stays, that real men don't abandon, that devotion is proved through endurance. So you endure, and she watches, not maliciously, not even consciously, just instinctively, because she does not know how to love without possessing. She was taught that to be loved is to be worshipped, and to be worshipped, one must suffer. So she suffers again and again, weaving her pain into rope and handing it to you so you may feel noble as you hang yourself for her salvation. But she never asks you to jump, she only watches. That is how the trap remains invisible, because you were never forced. You chose this again and again. And every time you tried to leave, she left a door open, just wide enough for your dignity to crawl back through. She makes you feel cruel for walking away. She makes you feel cowardly for needing space. She makes you feel selfish for wanting to be whole. And if you stay, if you give her one more chance, she rewards you with softness so exquisite it feels like grace. You will mistake this for rebirth, but it is only anesthesia. You are not healed, you are sedated, because she doesn't want the real you. She wants the version of you who lives for her weather, the one who waits at the altar of her moods, the one who calls thunder passion and stillness growth. She will praise your transformation, she will kiss the scars she mapped, she will cry when you tremble and say, "You're finally becoming the man I always saw in you." And you will believe her because you want to, because the alternative is unbearable that she never loved you, only the leash she built. So you hold her tighter, not out of love, out of fear that without her, you are no one. And that is the final illusion that your worth is bound to her gaze, that your depth was born in her arms, that without her, you are unfinished. But if you could silence her voice just once, you'd hear another whisper beneath it, one that sounds like hunger, but not for her, one that sounds like rage, but not toward her. It is the voice of the self you buried, the self that never needed to be decoded, reshaped, or healed through devotion. It is the self that remembers you were not made to kneel, you were not made to dim, you were not made to prove, you were made to burn. So let her mourn you, let her call it betrayal, let her rewrite the story in which you were cruel, let her crown herself the victim. Because you were never her savior, you were her fuel, and now she is out of fire. If this whisper remembers you, let it echo, like the video. Leave your last ember in the comments, subscribe, and let her silence be her own. Somewhere, in a room you never remember dreaming, a mannequin wears your skin. Its posture is perfect, its mouth is soft, it says all the right things, and she still visits it, touches its face, straightens its collar, calls it you, but you are gone, not lost, not broken, just unmirrored. No voice calls your name now, no gaze defines your worth. The silence does not praise you, it does not punish you, it simply does not care. And in that cold indifference, something stirs. Not comfort, not hope, but the first breath of a man no longer shaped, a face untouched by her hands, a spine that no longer bows to softness. There is no music, only footsteps, yours, and somewhere behind you, the velvet cage collects dust, still open, still empty, still waiting for someone else to call it love.